Humanity is in danger from a new threat, more dangerous than terrorists hiding in caves in Afghanistan, more deadly than WMDs in Iraq, and it threatens the existence of us all.
Global warming.
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 Starts with setting a hard cap on all carbon emissions.
To build over the next 50 years and beyond a global low-carbon economy.
Greenhouse gases trap the sun's heat in the atmosphere, and we are being told man-made carbon dioxide is causing temperatures to rise. But in fact, water vapour is by far the most abundant, accounting for 95% of greenhouse gases. Less than 5% is carbon dioxide, and only 0.28% is man-made.
Humans produce a small fraction in the single digits percentage-wise of the CO2 that is produced in the atmosphere.
Volcanoes produce more CO2 each year than all the factories and cars and planes and other sources of man-made carbon dioxide put together. More still comes from animals and bacteria, which produce about 150 gigatons of CO2 each year, compared to a mere 6.5 gigatons from humans. An even larger source of CO2 is dying vegetation, from falling leaves, for example, in the autumn. But the biggest source of CO2 by far is the oceans.
Almost all information we are given about the greenhouse effect focuses on man-made carbon dioxide and totally ignores water vapour.
So water vapor is the most abundant and the strongest greenhouse gas that we have. In today's climate, it accounts for about 60% of the greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide's around about 26%. And so when we have more water vapor in the atmosphere, it nearly doubles the original heating that occurs.
So just to amplify the point Kevin just made, Mars has 50 times as much carbon dioxide in its atmosphere as the Earth does. 50 times more. And it's really cold there. So carbon dioxide is not a very good greenhouse gas. Water vapor is what the difference is between Mars and Earth. It's the lack of water vapor that makes Mars so cold.
So what is the association between carbon dioxide and temperature change?
We're going back in time now, 650,000 years. Here's what the temperature has been on our Earth. Now, one thing that kind of jumps out at you is, do they ever fit together? Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The relationship is actually very complicated, but there is one relationship that is far more powerful than all the others, and it is this. When there is more carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer.
When we look at climate on long scales, we're looking for geological material that actually records climate. If we're to take an ice sample, for example, we use isotopes to reconstruct temperature, but the atmosphere that's imprisoned in that ice, we liberate, and then we look at the CO2 content.
Professor Clark and others have indeed discovered, as Al Gore says, a link between carbon dioxide and temperature. But what Al Gore doesn't say is that the link is the wrong way round.
So here we're looking at the ice core record from Vostok, and in the red we see temperature going up from early time to later time at a very key interval when we came out of a glaciation. And we see the temperature going up, and then we see the CO2 coming up. CO2 lags behind that increase. It's got an 800-year lag. So temperature is leading CO2 by 800 years.
So obviously, carbon dioxide is not the cause of that warming. In fact, we can say that the warming produced the increase in carbon dioxide.
CO2 clearly cannot be causing temperature changes. It's a product of temperature. It's following temperature changes.
The ice core record goes to the very heart of the problem we have here. They said, if the CO2 increases in the atmosphere as a greenhouse gas, then the temperature will go up. But the ice core record shows exactly the opposite. So the fundamental assumption, the most fundamental assumption of the whole theory of climate change due to humans is shown to be wrong.
Carbon dioxide is not the cause of climate change, but has been demonized by the government and media as a pollutant that causes climate change. when in fact it is a natural gas produced by all living things.
Carbon dioxide is a natural gas produced by all living things.
Few things annoy me more than to hear people talking about carbon dioxide as being a pollutant. You're made of carbon dioxide. I'm made of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is how living things grow.
Increased levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is scientifically proven to increase plant growth and significantly increase yields.
The vegetation of this planet developed and acquired its basic characteristics in an atmosphere that had much more CO2 than that of the present. And logic would therefore tell you that if you have more CO2 in the air, plants will do better. And in fact, this is exactly true.
For the past 3 years, Dr. Rizzo has been growing sour orange trees in enclosures containing double the amount of CO2 than normal. The carbon dioxide-enriched air is continuously pumped into the chambers and escapes up through the top. At the same time, identical trees are kept in exactly the same conditions but are fed normal air only.
These trees are planted directly into the ground. This chamber here is getting twice the normal amount of carbon dioxide as what is in the atmosphere. You see the trees are growing quite well. They're taller than we are. Over here is a companion chamber that is receiving only ambient or normal air. And the trees here are only half as big as the trees in the enriched chamber. The enriched trees have 180% more volume in their trunks and branches than do the trees in the normal CO2 chamber.
Throughout Earth's history, it is heated and cooled periodically. But if carbon dioxide is not to blame, then who is?
NASA acknowledges solar cycle, not man, responsible for global warming. So basically, ready for this? The sun heats the Earth.
The eccentricity of the Earth's orbit is a measure of how round or how oval the orbit shape is. Over thousands of years, the eccentricity of the Earth's orbit varies as a result of gravitational attractions among the planets, primarily Jupiter and Saturn. The orbital eccentricity cycles with a period of roughly 100,000 years. As the eccentricity of the orbit evolves, the semi-major axis of the orbital ellipse remains unchanged, so the length of the sidereal year remains unchanged. As the Earth travels in its orbit, the duration of seasons depends on the eccentricity of the orbit. When the orbital eccentricity is extreme, the seasons that occur on the far side of the orbit are substantially longer in duration. In addition to axial precession, there's the axial tilt, the angle the Earth's rotational axis makes with its orbital plane. It is currently about 23.4 degrees and is declining. This tilt varies from 22.1 degrees to 24.5 degrees. It makes one complete tilt and back every 41,000 years. This change in tilt is directly related to ice ages on Earth. The last maximum tilt occurred in 8700 BC, and the next minimum tilt will happen in 11,800 AD.
There is a 100,000 year difference between warmer periods and a 100,000 year difference between cooler periods. These changes are not being caused by carbon dioxide, but by the 100,000 year variation in the Earth's orbit around the Sun. We are currently in a warming period because the Earth's eccentricity is at its closest to the Sun.